Hello there, my name is Lewis and you're watching LAPH's Choice Episode 2. So I thought we could do this just as a kind of little throw-in for variety instead of the series, where we'll just kind of do whatever and go with the flow, be loose with it. Today I wanted to work with quite a vague description. We're just going to be painting some kind of space girl in a retro futuristic style. So I thought we could try out some different stylistic effects with that. Not sure what style I'm going to go, whether I'm going to go with line works or similar to the old oil paintings you'd get on comic books and magazines. So we'll have a look. I'm going to do this in quite a high resolution square, which is 4,500 pixels by 4,500 pixels. I always like to make my backgrounds grey, just so it's easier on the eyes and you can pick out values better. And today I'm going to be starting out with some line work. So I'm going to be using the same paintbrush that I always do, which is just the basic line brush with kind of a brick texture, but really it could just be a flat rectangle of any texture. Just because it's the simplest brush and I feel it suits this channel best to show that the art isn't really dependent on the tool, it's more of the techniques that you use. So we're just going to start sketching out with black to find the character of our figure. Now I want quite a heroic pose, so I'm going to go with something that's quite bent outwards like that, and maybe a gun will be involved. Something a bit reminiscent of like the Nuka-Cola girl from the Fallout series. A bit pin-up-y, but quite retro-futuristic. So she's going to be in kind of like a spacesuit kind of thing with lots of old styly, kind of non-functional aesthetics on it. So I kind of started with the bean technique, which is quite a common one for anatomy. And especially one that's been very helpful is one that I've seen on Aaron Blaze's channel, where you draw the hands in first and then you get the arms in later, which I feel is kind of reminiscent to the kind of computer animation techniques that you get where you can kind of move the hand and the arm will pivot to it, as if you've grabbed the hand of some kind of like art model, like the wooden figures. If you moved that hand, the arm would just move to it organically. Alright then, so we've got most of the drawing in, and I think for a lot of the details I'm going to go with the colour scheme to kind of suggest that retro futuristic style. I've gone with these kind of wings over here, and tried to get some fins in on the arm, like that kind of Batman-esque fin as well, to kind of hint towards that retro futuristic feel. But yeah, got the suit in, got the pose and the gesture in, and the bobble as well, which I managed to very sneakily combine with a kind of low cut. So yeah, now we're just going to get the paint on in the right shapes, and that's where a lot of the finalisation will come, is when we get that paint stroke feel into it. I think I'm going to go with kind of oil paintings like strokes and get it all colorised. So when painting something like this, especially when you start with the line work, it's often quite a good idea to start in a layer behind the artwork and just kind of figure out what kind of colours you want, and then you can really swamp in like a particular colour scheme and pick up what works and pick up what doesn't very quickly with that method. And the more important thing is just to try and get the whole canvas in one foul sweep, see how much you can really cover. Okay, so after fiddling around with the composition, especially the background, for what feels like an eternity, I've reached a colour scheme that I think I quite like. We're just going to carry on getting this colour scheme in. In fact, I'll leave the background and the silhouette separate. I've separated her from the background because I felt that was a bit easier. But normally I would just edit the whole thing in one, and I have a feeling I'm eventually going to want to merge them, just because it makes things so much easier and it makes the painting feel so much more intertwined. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not two separate pieces or two separate cutouts, but like they're the same things in the same environment. It just really helps to have everything on one layer. So now's the fun part. I'm going to actually try with this one, duplicating the line work just so we've got a save of it, and then in fact I think I will merge all of it together. So all of that's being merged together, including the line work. This is all now one solidly baked layer. So we're just going to be going in with the lighting now. I think I'm going to go with quite bright direct lighting and just focus on getting some of the colours in, like the hues on the cheeks and such. The spacesuit shouldn't be too hard, and then maybe get a nice rim light on it because those normally look quite futuristic. And she's standing in front of a window, so there's a good excuse for it. Maybe the sun's coming from the top left over here, so we're going to be left with a kind of rim light on the whole right side of her. But we'll give that a go and try out some different things with the lighting now that it's baked together and see what we come up with. So I'm going to start with this by just trying to find my overall colours and what direction I want them to go. Whether I want them to become more or less saturated, whether I want the suit to go more towards blue or less towards blue in the shadows, and even what direction I really want the light to end up in. So this is where I'm just using my colour picker a lot and just experimenting with what kind of lighting scheme we want for this one. It's been quite easy to add that first bit of dimensionality. All we've done is selected the blue, made it a bit darker and a bit more saturated and a bit closer to blue even, and that's given us our kind of starting area. And now all that I'm doing is imagining that we've got a light source, maybe somewhere around here, quite wide, a lot wider than this arrow, and it's just pointing straight down. And that's my kind of lighting scheme. So with that, we're just glazing over, which I'll eventually switch to a brush that doesn't glaze because that'll ruin the kind of oil painting effect. It'll be the exact same brush, it just won't glaze and it'll mix with the background instead. So you can see that quite easily we've added that three-dimensionality to our suit now just by following a basic lighting scheme, remembering that it's 3D and using three colours, our primary, secondary light and our shadow. Just to mark it out, that would be our primary light, our secondary light and our shadow. And then eventually we'll add our occlusion shadows, which will be the darkest kind, which will be like in these very secluded areas where not much light can reach. Now all we're doing is the exact same thing but for the skin, and I've done the exact same lighting protocol. I've just grabbed the base colour of the skin, which is quite a light colour generally, and I've made it a bit darker. You can see how light it is already, a bit darker and a bit more saturated, and I've made it a bit closer to red, and that's how we've ended up with this colour. I'm going to cheat a little bit here and use the liquify just to bring that eye in. I always make that mistake of having the further away side of the face peek out just a little bit more than it should do. So we're about an hour and a half in. The face is looking okay. I've had to do some resizing and rescaling because it didn't look quite right at points. I feel like I'm kind of wrestling it at the moment, but I'll wrestle it into submission. So now we're just widening the values in some of the ranges like the suit, and it's kind of a jump back and forth kind of gig, and getting that detail in. So I want to at least get the character completed today and get most of the detail in, and then maybe the background and the final finishing in the next one. This is definitely not going to get finished today. Out of desperation, because I feel like the face looks kind of a bit older than I want it to. I'm going to try out some kind of Riley Rhythm-esque makeshift thing of getting it together and in the shape that I want. This grid just kind of helps to figure out what needs to change. Also just shows the weird obvious blaring problems in the head, like if the ear is an odd angle like it was and the back of the head bloated out. Oh, so let's see what we can do with our mighty liquefy here and kind of move it into a face that looks just a little bit younger. So the back of the head, obviously a big blaring problem that was sticking out. Just helps to see things three-dimensionally how they are. This kind of grid does. It works really, really nicely in digital if you just want to get something liquefied properly. And the methodology behind it, all I did was I drew the grid as the face is, and now I've selected both the layers. So I'm not actually even looking at the face underneath very much, I'm just looking at the actual grid and seeing how I can move the grid to look more accurate. And whenever you do these big liquefied touch-ups, it's always fun at the end to try and compare the two. So now we can see, there you go, that looks much better in my opinion. I did save a copy so we can analyse and see what's different. So my big problem seems to be that I was just really bloating all of this side of the face, so my perspective was just way too distorted over there. It was kind of like a big lump coming out. So now that I've made those changes, I feel a lot more confident about the painting and where the face is going. And those are just some of the basic tools you get in digital that are just so handy in a pinch when you're really trying to figure out what's wrong with something. So we've colorized the gun and I'm quite liking the reflectiveness of it. I went in with the specular reflections quite early just to see what that looks like, but eventually the suit will have the same kind of specular reflections where it's really quite light, and I'll make that look like the suit is a lot shinier, and that'll add that texture because right now the suit looks quite matte. So you can see how those specular reflections really change the reflectiveness of something so much. It really is what tells your eyes something is reflective. So far we've got the background change to black as well, so she stands out more because she's quite a bright character. Not sure whether I'll keep the hair or not in the next episode, but I quite like it as is because it's quite retro. Maybe just a little bit of shaping, because something's definitely not right about it. Yes, definitely something more like that. So yeah, the next episode we'll work on the details a lot more, get some wrinkles in the suit and get a lot more specular reflections on it. We'll carry on working on the face and we'll add a background, we'll add some stars and maybe some spaceships in the circle behind her, and I think I might make it a perfect mathematical circle, just so it really looks like she's kind of framed. I kind of like that aesthetic. Maybe I'll even make the portions that are in white clear, so I can put it on kind of any transparent background and it kind of gets framed like that. So I hope you've enjoyed, and I hope it hasn't been as much of a struggle for you as it has been for me. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thank you.